Hello and welcome to the Blueprint. I am so excited today to be joined by my friend Heather Vickery. She is a transformation coach and subconscious reprogrammer, along with being a human design expert. And she will explain what these concepts mean. But first, welcome, Heather.
Hello, Marley. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to dig in. You and I both share the eternal love for learning and
Yes, we do.
learning voraciously. Um, so I'm so excited because I know you're constantly and always on a learning journey. And I believe that's what really humanity and being a human is all about. But would love to hear really your sort of spiritual awakening story because you and I share a history in that we both were in the events industry
Yeah,
for many years,
yep.
and, you have successfully pulled yourself out of that, but what, has shifted for you in terms of your spiritual awakening into all the amazing work that you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it's funny because I have successfully shifted away from it, and now I find that I'm dipping my toe in different ways into events because I launched retreats, which is events kind of, and the doing a hosting a local networking breakfast, which is like kind of events. It's very weird how things are secular, but my story really goes back to about 11 years ago where um I kind of blew my whole life up. Not kind of, like legit, fully blew my whole life up. I came out of the closet and got a divorce after a decade of marriage and 4 kids, and I'd had my business, my event planning business for a long time. And as I was, like, learning more about myself and finding ways to care about myself, that's when I discovered gratitude, which sounds like a dumb thing to say, but I got certified in positive psychology, and I was like, "Gratitude is whoa, like, there's science here. This is cool." I started to notice that people saw me as a coach. So I say coaching found me. I didn't find it, and I people were coming to me at events, stopping me, emailing me, texting me, calling me saying, "I wanna start this. I wanna stop this. I wanna try this. I wanna do this. I think you can help. Will you talk to me?" I'm like, "What is this?" So I decided to sort of lean in, and that's when I pulled sort of that metaphysical thread that you were alluding to earlier. Like there's a thing that I'm connected to that I can feel, but I don't know what it is, and I hadn't really paid attention to it. Like, we joked in my family, my mom and I, psychic connection with each other. Like, we always know when there's something going on with the other. We can feel each other deeply. Uh, she sees ghosts, but she's not willing to say we're witches. I definitely think we're fucking witches. Sorry, can't curse on your podcast. So, it's sort of like everyone's like, "Oh, you burned your life to the ground, like, that sounds so aggressive," and I'm like, "No, it was so freeing." Like, it was very Phoenix-like, right? Because it allowed me to look at everything differently and rebuild it in a way that felt aligned, and I opened up this chasm of possibility, and that's where everything changes, right? And that's when I really moved into a spiritual space. I was never religious. We didn't grow up religious, didn't go to church, didn't do any of those things. But my connection to the universe started to expand at that point. And it's just been a really fascinating journey. And side note, I was in Costa Rica last week doing a planning trip for the retreat I'm hosting in January. Have you been to Costa Rica? This relates, I promise.
No, I haven't, and I have been called to go there for so long. Something better is calling you. Costa Rica isn't just a destination, it's an invitation to release what no longer serves you and immerse yourself in the wild beauty of the jungle. That is what I am about, my friends. And I'm talking about my friend Heather Vickery's upcoming retreat this January to Costa Rica, to Imaloa. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous retreat center located in the pristine jungle of Costa Rica. You can find out more about this excursion, but ultimately it is about reclaiming the peace that's already yours, which is so aligned with the blueprint and what we do. It's for those that feel the pull to something bigger, even if they can't name it yet, and they're looking for a place to connect in community, to return to themselves and find that peace and calm that is your birthright. So head to vickeryandco.com/Costa-Rica for more information. You can also go to vickeryandco.com/events.
Yes. Well, because so you're gonna love this because I was thinking about you as I was formulating this thought earlier today. There's something about that land that felt like a golden cord from the core of the earth through my body up into the cosmos.
Wow.
Like, it was that intense. You can literally feel it vibrating through your body. I've never experienced anything like it.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely incredible. And is that where your retreat is happening?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Unbelievable. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I have a few questions. And of course, they might be a little personal, but
Nah, go
first,
ahead.
like reflecting on your observation of clearing that energy and really just like the blowing up of everything, it basically blows up the existing energy, whether that be stagnant or otherwise.
Yeah,
The way I always kind of think of it is like within our bodies, within our auric field, within our field. It's not that we're finite, but we do have the capacity only for so much at a time. So when we clear that out, it's almost like opening the opportunity and like you're saying, the possibility for the unknown and for the quantum and for, all different types of doors to open. So that's amazing. And I wanted to ask, this is super personal, but with your coming out experience,
mhm.
like did you always know or was there something that happened or was it really just like listening into your intuition or how did that sort of
Oh,
unfold?
it sounds crazy. I didn't know. Sorry. I should have known. When you look back, you're like, "Oh, that was a sign, and that was a sign," and I joke that if I had found the lesbians in college, maybe the story would be different, but I didn't know they were there. Um, and the easiest way for me to explain it is the way women talk about one another is so lovely. Well, they can be really mean and awful, but in general, if we love each other, we're like, "Oh my god, you're so hot. You're so beautiful. You're so gorgeous." And we can hug and we can feel things. And I didn't know that the way that felt inside of my body was different than the way it would feel inside a straight woman's body.
Mm.
Until one day I did. Well, like, I was 38 and I was like, "Oh shit, that's different. Wait a minute. Hold on a second." And I tried to not pay attention to it for a long time. Um, because, I was married and we had kids and you don't get married to get divorced and eventually felt like I didn't even exist as a person. Like I was so small. Every decision I made was fear-based. Every choice I made was which one will bother or upset the fewest people. I wasn't considering myself in that process at all. And I just couldn't take it anymore.
Wow. And it's almost like that, that observation and that knowing of the physical attraction or those physical feelings, abandoning that or boxing that away. Did that feel like it led to boxing away of other things, or were those things already being boxed away?
Everything was just dull. So it wasn't until so I have a method. I think you know this in my book over my shoulder. Fuck Fearless is it's called the Brave Method. And I created the Brave Method because this is the process I took myself through. Um, and it's an acronym, right? So the R is reassessment, reframing, and resilience, the 3 R's. So I didn't know what I'm about to share until much later when I was actually taking the time to reassess and reflect and figure out who I was and what I wanted. But I had started to cut off relationships, long-term relationships, relationships with family members. I just pulled back from everything, and everything went really dull. I
Mm.
couldn't enjoy the things that I had enjoyed before. I didn't feel like I was present for my kids. I didn't certainly wasn't present for myself. Everything was on autopilot, and it was just sort of like I was behind a screen all the time. And then one morning, I was sitting at the breakfast table with my 4 daughters, and it was sunny and beautiful, and the lights streaming in, and they were all really little still at the time. The baby was a baby. And I thought, "What would I want for them?" If they came to me in any sort of similar situation, what advice would I give them? And instantly I was like, well, I wouldn't say, "You made your bed, now sleep in it." I wouldn't say, "Suck it up." I would say, "The world is waiting for you to show up. The world is waiting for you to take up space and to play big, and you don't have to feel this way all the time." And I realized instantly that if I wanted that for them, I had to do it for me, and also to show them that it was possible. And an interesting through line, and I'm trying to be really, really transparent about this publicly, is for many years, that led to me saying I had to do it for my kids. And then a couple of years ago, one of my daughters said, "Could you just admit that you didn't do it for us? You didn't do it for us. You did it for you." And she's right. I did. I did it for me because it was going to kill me. And I didn't think that was better for them, but I did do it for me. And we have to make the choices we make because they're better for us, and know that if it's better for us, it will be better for the people we care about.
Absolutely, and I think also being someone that has made hard decisions, like, getting unwed, uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
knowing that it's for my child in the way that I don't want my child to grow up with the idea that love is this thing that isn't what love is.
Yeah.
And so even though, yes, it is for us, in the big picture, you're absolutely right. Everything for us, when we can show up at our as our best selves, is for our children.
Yep.
And I think children, the complexity in which they see their parental relationships is that they are a decision maker within the relationship, when that's never the case in a relationship.
Yeah.
It's only decision between two people. And of course, I'm inferring that is what you're referring, just
Yeah,
because that's my
but it's
experience.
I think that we're taught as humans, but especially as women, that we can't make decisions that are just for us, that we have
Mm,
to have a good reason to make a decision. And I share that story because I fell into that same trap for a long time until my kid called me out on it. And of course, I do want her to make decisions just for herself because they're the right things to do, and because then that has a beautiful trickle effect around us. And so I've changed the language. Like, even on my website, it's not selfish, it's self first, and why self first is good and important. And we can't be the foundation. We can't be the joy. We can't be any of the things we want to be for others if we cannot give that to ourselves first.
absolutely. And I feel like at an energetic level, when we can when we can love ourselves and be at peace with our energy and be our fully embodied selves, then we're closer to oneness, which is the oneness with all.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where I think, like, I've gotten criticism about, the blueprint within and individualism and self-focus. And
Mm,
that was just
I'll
from
bet you have.
a person that didn't ever listen to the content, I don't think. But the truth of the matter is, I just, and I believe that's where it begins. But recently, even on LinkedIn, someone essentially posted that this high focus on inner work is a privilege, and that it's privileged to be able to have the mental capacity and emotional capacity to focus on yourself. And I see that perspective from a place of being in survival due to our mechanistic systems. If you have to work 3 jobs to feed your children and you don't have time truly to, you know, self reflect or, spend that time. I mean, I guess I'm always trying to just be really
Mm,
sensitive to all perspectives, as I know you deeply are.
mhm.
But even 5 minutes of
That's
time is
yeah.
sacred, for taking it intentionally for yourself. And so, thank you, for that perspective. I agree with you. And I also agree with the fact that women don't, we don't need to, it doesn't have to be
Mm,
for someone outside of
it
us.
doesn't. And I hear that perspective that it comes from privilege, and certainly a lot of inner work, a lot of self-work there is deeply rooted in privilege. I don't have like, there are people who have all the time and the money in the world to constantly be at, meditating for hours a day or off doing this and that, and there's a lot of privilege in that. But the work that we're talking about, which is internal work, doesn't have to cost money and time, and yes, there can be cultural things that lead to people struggling with it. But, I'm an avid reader. And I listen to memoirs on audiobook, and I really love to listen to diverse stories, people who'd have very different lived experiences than me. And consistently, the thing that I hear that really resonates for me in all of these stories. So, if we want to talk about Viola Davis or Shonda Rhimes or seriously, T-Boz from TLC, I listened to that one last week. It was really great. The list could go on and on. It is always about discovering what's inside and finding peace on the inside and choosing to chase their dreams regardless of what story they've been told. So, yes, it absolutely can come from a privileged space, but it does no one is unable to tap into it if they've been exposed. The other side of that is Trevor Noah's memoir, which I loved. He has a line that says, "You can't dream of things you've never imagined." And that's why talking about it is important. And I think that the work that you're doing here with the blueprint is important, and the work that we're doing out in the world is important, and making sure that we're not talking into a monolith and we're not talking only to the people, the white women that look like us, and we're
Mhm.
finding ways to connect with other people because you can't dream of things you've never imagined.
Absolutely. And I think I deeply agree with you. That's the whole premise of the blueprint, is that we have everything we seek within,
Yeah,
right?
that's there it
And that
is.
it's accessible to everyone and all people, no matter your, physical location, your financial situation. And of course, I understand the idea of privilege relative to time and self-perception of security. Um, but I think where what I feel and see is like the when we raise our consciousness, which is not some, mystical,
It's energy.
reachable
You can
world.
measure energy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's really just a widening of our perspective and a deepening of our appreciation and gratitude, and in a welcoming of awe in all things. Like, it
absolutely.
literally, a leaf and a petal, and nature serves us with awe every single day if we are willing to see what's there, if we stop and take the time. And so, it's interesting, but also I still feel deeply that it's all interconnected.
It is.
Also, in terms of quantum theory and quantum physics, like, what if our thoughts create our
Well,
reality?
they do. I
Exactly.
mean, listen, I know I've shared this with you before. I'm pretty sure you remember it, but your listeners may not know this. In 2021, Nobel Prize for Physics went to 3 physicists who have proven that the universe does not locally exist.
Mhm.
We are ex it's wild. Like, take a minute, y'all. Take a breath and sit down with this. We are experiencing it like a hologram. So if you think about the sound of light, I'm sorry, the speed of light, the speed of sound, um, the future is the same thing, and we are literally creating it, and it is manipulatable because it doesn't locally exist, which is wild, and I get it, but the science is catching up with the woo. which is cool because my work is right where science and woo meet, science and spirituality meet.
Mm.
And I have a really fascinating story how these things are interconnected, again, from Costa Rica because it was wild. I was sitting on my little porch, literally straight up in the middle of the rainforest. I mean, we were in the jungle, and I was doing a live stream on TikTok, and I felt something buzz really close to my back, and it freaked me the fuck out. It was like a massive buzzing, and I screeched, and I turned around, and I shit you not, Marley, it was a hummingbird. And it stayed long enough, not long enough for me to get a picture, but long enough for me to see it and look at it. And I was like, "Oh my god, like, is this the best metaphor for everything ever or what?" Like, I was terrified of this thing that I didn't know what it was, and then it was this beautiful, incredible thing that no one ever sees. You never see a hummingbird, they're too fast. I have a hummingbird tattooed on my inner wrist,
Oh my gosh, amazing. And
right?
birds are such a sacred
Yes,
symbol. It's
right?
that's
So,
incredible.
like, you could be scared but show up anyway. You can be scared, but challenge yourself anyway. You can be scared, but embrace possibility anyway, because you just don't know what you're gonna find.
This morning, I usually journal every morning when I wake up, and this morning, all I wrote was believe to receive.
Mm,
Because to the exact point that you're making, like, I have been spending a lot of my time, what I would say, spinning my wheels and trying to, do business development, reach out to people, generate income,
mhm,
help my bank account.
mhm.
But the truth of the matter is, like, every day I wonder to myself, and very I believe that if I actually spent more time visualizing and reprogramming my beliefs, which I've spent a lot of time doing, but the fact of the matter is that, it is almost like for me cyclical, where
Mhm.
I'll do a lot of work and have so much clarity. And then it's almost like either energetics or just, media or consumption. It feels like I get off kilter,
Yeah.
I need like a reprogramming and a kind of reacquaintance. And I think it's also been tough because I have always deeply believed in myself and the universe. And as an entrepreneur in a very challenging category, sustainability with
Yeah.
hospitality and events, I have not seen the success and the, beliefs in myself come to fruition. And it's like, I don't even want to say the
Because
word,
'cause you're ahead of the curve.
but still, like, I guess that's the thing. It's like I know how connected our thoughts are to our reality and our vision is to our reality. And yes, I'm from the future. But anyway,
No, it's true. I mean,
yeah,
one of the so to bring a science thing and a metaphysical thing together on this, it's really important. It's okay to get off kilter. It's okay to feel out of sorts. So I don't do morning journaling because I'm not a great journaler, but this morning I was also called to journal, and all I said was fuck, 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 fuck over and over and over again. But sometimes you have to release it, right? And then you can laugh at it and then you can let it go.
I feel it in the back of my neck. Like it's like
Yeah.
fuck, fuck, fuck.
Yeah. I was like, I just needed to expand it, right? So there's that. And then there's time bending, and then there's quantum field, and then there's shifting. So yes, you have to be transparent about it. I like to use EFT tab. So one of the things that when I got my NLP certification, so for my NLP certification, which is subconscious reprogramming, I got certified in EFT tapping. So that's part of it. So those of you who don't know, you tap on all the meridian points and it repatterns. But you start on the karate chop by releasing the negative thoughts and the negative energy. So you speak them into power, which is counterintuitive to all of the metaphysicals who are like, never ever say the bad thing. But sometimes the bad thing is there. Not saying it doesn't make it disappear. So when you tap, you release the negative, and then you go through and you pattern in the affirmative, the things that you want, and your mindset matters and your energy matters. So when I was coming home from Costa Rica last week, I had a domestic flight that was leaving from Quepos, going to San Jose. We were supposed to leave at 9:30 a.m. and land at 10 a.m., and my flight to the States was at 11:30 a.m. We did not land until 10:45 AM. So I spent the 20-minute flight literally doing this. I am always, always taken care of. I always have everything I need. I am peace. I am joy. I am success. I am health. I am happiness. I am peace. I just went over and over. I said those things over and over. I made it in time to fill my water bottle and buy a snack before I got on that 11:30 flight.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah.
Like, that's time bending because there's no other answer. That
That's
just doesn't
totally
happen.
right. And always I think that's the thing too. It's like the belief that it always works out. The belief that it always works out. If you can subconsciously reprogram your mind to embody that truth. Now, talk a little bit more about subconscious reprogramming and a little bit more about the subconscious mind, how we, garner those thoughts. We've talked a lot about this in the beginning of the blueprint, but Give if you could give some more context as
Yeah.
to what this means and why it's so important, and also how you know, you knew
Yeah.
this was for you.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. So when I said you said you're from the future, like, you're ahead of the timeline. Consistently, the things that just, like, pop into my head that I think, "Oh, that is a thing. That's a true thing," but no one's talking about that, and that's weird, but I continue to believe it, and then maybe 2, 3 years later, everybody's talking about it, or the science is proving it, and inevitably, I'm like, but I knew that already. How did I know that? I don't know how I knew that." And, so, when subconscious reprogram, when NLP started showing up, I'm like, "Okay, this is a really cool manipulative tool," and I want you to think manipulative, I don't mean that in a bad way, like, getting rid of the story, getting rid of
Yeah.
all the stuff that's been patterned onto you. So, you wanna think of your conscience like an iceberg, and your what you're consciously aware of is the tip of the iceberg, it's the part that shows. And your subconscious is everything else. So
Mhm.
we think that we're super conscious and super aware of what's happening. Chances are that is just a really limited view of the entire story. So if you are somebody who really believes that everything is relevant and that you're going to be successful and you money is your birthright and yet you're not making any money, your subconscious is sabotaging you. That's just what's happening. That's the
Mhm.
way that works, right? And so I was called to it as I am with everything to learn it for me. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I will share this. When I got certified in human design, I absolutely had no vision of how I would use it professionally. I just knew that I needed to know this. And then I'm like, well, this changes the game. So now I partner human design and subconscious reprogramming. For example, I have a whole product suite coming out of subliminal audios that are specific to human design chart elements. So people can,
Wow.
right? How cool is that? Right.
Cool.
So the way that works is it sounds like it's just pretty music, but underneath it, there are affirmations that pattern onto your subconscious and shift the way you experience the world.
Mm.
We do hypnotherapy, we do EFT tapping. I have a whole book of resources, parts techniques, swish therapy, like all sorts of different things to change thoughts and emotions attached to particular experiences, to release anger, sadness, frustration, to shift behaviors, to change limiting decisions and limiting beliefs that it's amazing. And I got into it because I wanted it for me. And inevitably, I'm like, oh, well, this is what everybody needs. And I don't know anybody else who's combining human design and NLP work, subconscious reprogramming in that way. So it's kind of fun. But again, I'm way ahead of the curve here on this. And that sounds really cocky, but it's hard to sell it. And you said this for yourself
Yeah.
when nobody knows what we're talking about, but we just have to keep talking about what we know.
Totally. No, I love that. And I think what you're doing is so intuitively brilliant, but also I feel as if not enough people understand and respect, ancient mapping like astrology
Hmm.
and human
Hmm.
design and
Hmm.
gene keys. And human design and gene keys are not ancient, but they're rooted in ancient wisdom, right?
Hmm.
And so, can you explain a little bit about what human design is and how it relates to astrology and um, really how you have seen it support people in their self-understanding and in
Yeah.
their mission in
Yeah,
life.
absolutely. So human design is a modern scientific self-discovery system. And I prefer it to something like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or anything like that because those are self-selected answers. And this is based on your birth date, time, and location, but astrology is just one component of it. So it's based on the Chinese I Ching, Kabbalah, Buddhism, quantum physics, astrology, and the chakra system. And I assume your listeners are very woo. Some people love this. They like make it makes them way more into it. And some people are like, this is fucking insane. But it was all a man named Ra Aruhu was on a mushroom trip in the middle of the forest, and all of this information was downloaded into his brain. And that makes me want to take a nap because this is so much information. I don't know how he survived that. I feel like my body would explode. But alas, he channeled it, he wrote it down, and he put it out there. And I do not know why human design works, but I know that it does work. And there are 5 types in human design: manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. So each of those types, and that's just, again, that's the tip of the human design iceberg. It tells me immediately if you're supposed to be multi-passionate, if how important a hell yes is. Can you feel a hell yes or a fuck no? Like you can, Marley. And I remember doing this with you. You were indecisive about something at one point, and I said, just close your eyes and take a deep breath. And I'm going to ask you a question and feel the answer. And you were like, yeah, fuck no, I don't want to do that right now. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
right? Like, so I can guide people. I can ask questions in a way that they can find the answers. And so much of the way we process all the time is we think. And my goal when I'm working with clients is to feel the answers. And your body will give you the signs, but you have to know what they are. And we have to coach and guide you through that awareness. And then we can make decisions so much more quickly and we can feel better about it. We don't apologize for ourselves all the time. So it's just, it's helped me be a more thoughtful parent. It's helped me be a much more successful and helpful coach. It's helped me be more compassionate with myself. So projectors, which is what I am, we're here to guide and lead, but we have to rest before we're successful. We only have about 3 to 4 hours of work in us a day. And if we're focused, we can do 8 to 10 hours worth of work in 3 or 4 hours if we can keep our shit together. But we have to rest first and prioritize rest after. And that is super counterintuitive. The whole world is built for you. You're a generator. The world is
Mhm.
built for the motors, and we are not motors. And so I had to learn to stop apologizing for that and questioning myself. And the more a projector leans in to rest and surrender, the more successful we are. Well, that's counterintuitive. The fuck?
Well, that's divine feminine,
Of
but it's
course.
not the patriarchal system that we live in 100%. And it that I mean, that also reminds me of, women's menstrual cycles and just how different we physically are throughout. And not definitely not designed for productivity for an entire month. That's for certain. And
We're
so
not, yeah. I actually used to work with somebody who that was her whole specialty, was helping people build their business structures around their cycle, which was really cool.
well, and human design is a lot different than astrology too, in that you really need someone that is an expert in the
Yeah.
actual understanding of it. And I had a friend read mine to me before having a session with you, and I misinterpreted it in a way that was kind of detrimental
Oh,
for
yeah.
so it is important to also deeply understand it because it is extremely complex. I will say that when I found out my type before you and I had our session, I was able to go on YouTube and watch like a 10-minute video that's like a high level. It's not,
Sure.
it's definitely not a reading, and it's not that constructive. But I did a session for myself and my child, and that was really interesting because I really wanted to more deeply, understand how I could support that relationship.
Yeah. Game
And,
changing.
what was wild is that you were like, "You're the 2 most similar people that I've ever seen."
You
So it's
are.
like having my reading twice. But also just amazing, to more deeply understand, like, if you're parenting a very similar version of yourself, like how your own wounds can really get
That part.
activated and really just to be conscious of that
Yeah,
throughout the journey. How
that
have you
part.
seen in terms of your clients when you work with them, are you sort of are they coming to you saying, "I need subconscious reprogramming," or "I want human design," or are you kind of assessing the situation?
Yeah. I usually assess, they might be curious, and it's interesting, I met a woman through a retreat that I did with you a year ago, and she was like, "Well, I really like you, but I don't even know what I would work with you on." But most people who hire me, they don't know what it is, and they're like, "I just know that I want your energy and I want your vibe, and we're gonna figure it out together," and that's usually what we'll do. And that was totally fine that she felt that way, but I wasn't the right fit for her because she needed very specific, which I can do. Yeah, you can hire me for human design, you can hire me for subconscious reprogramming, but usually we wanna kinda weave in something that's custom for you. So human design stuff, people will come to me specifically for that, and the more I talk about the NLP, subconscious reprogramming, people will come for that. But most of the time they're like, I don't know. I don't know what I need, but I need something. Can we talk?" And then I will make a suggestion. Yeah,
Amazing. And obviously you have the BRAVE framework also
I
with your
do.
book.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what the B is, because
Oh,
obviously that's the breakdown. Is that a breakdown?
it's not, no, but that's great. So the reason that I named it the Brave Method is because for years my work has been about embracing fear. We don't want to be fearless. That's stupid. We're not fearless. Fear is a natural, normal human emotion, and in many cases, it serves us really well. We wanna be curious with our fear. We wanna ask it questions. We wanna learn from it. Once we gain awareness, then we really only have 2 choices. We either change or we're willfully ignorant and we allow ourselves to feel miserable and we know that's what's happening, right? So
Mm,
that's what I mean when I say brave. Brave, I'm not talking about necessarily really massive things. It's just taking that ownership. So I when I wanted to create a platform, I was like, well, I need an acronym. Well, might as well be brave because that's what we do. So I'm actually going to go backwards. The result is the E,
mm,
expansion and empowerment. And those are inside jobs.
mhm,
I can't give someone expansion and empowerment. I call bullshit on any person who says, "I empower women to X, Y, and Z." No, you don't. You guide, you lead, you coach. That's what I wanna do. I wanna support, I wanna cheerlead. You only empower yourself when you do the fucking work, when you show up for yourself and you mean it and you keep showing up for yourself. That's how you expand and empower. So the B is boundaries. Boundaries are limits that define acceptable behavior. And in the brave method, you get to decide what's acceptable behavior. So, where does it hurt? Where are things uncomfortable? And when we're taking radical self responsibility, what can we do to shift it? What can we change within ourselves? Set a boundary, communicate it clearly with the people around us, and then stick to it. That's what the B is. Then the R is the 3 R's: reassessment, reframing, and resilience. Resilience is the number one key indicator into whether or not a person will be successful. It's not skill, it's not
mm,
talent, it's resilience. And resiliency is all about reassessing and reflecting and showing up and doing it again, but differently instead of repeating yourself in the same unhealthy ways. BRA is action and accountability because it's not just in the thinking of things where change occurs, it's in the doing of things. Yes, you have to have the right mindset, but you also have to do the fucking thing.
mhm.
You have to take intentional action. V is vulnerability and also authenticity, but I needed it to work with the V. Um, you have to put yourself out there. You have to trust people. And I want to be really clear, vulnerability isn't turning yourself inside out and showing people your guts. It's not cutting yourself open and bearing your soul, but it is, as Brené Brown would say, soft heart, strong back, soft front, strong back.
Mhm.
Y It is really being honest and connecting. And actually, this is fascinating from an energetic standpoint. A couple of years ago, scientists were able to measure the energy of emotions in a hyperbaric chamber. Do you know what energy had the biggest impact and also the biggest, um, boomerang effect?
I
Can you
do.
guess?
I do.
You do.
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Authenticity, right?
It's so real.
It's so real, people can tell, and we can tell, right? So that's where the V comes from, and then E, expansion and empowerment.
Yeah. So I have a question about where you see, and this is my own hypothesis, but I also think it's my purpose in this life really, is sort of this fear of death. Stay with me on this. Fear of death, prohibiting us from feeling our sorrow and our grief around the climate, or these bigger issues at hand, essentially keeping us from activism, action,
Mm,
that A phase.
mhm.
Do you feel like we are collectively avoidant of looking at the hard things? Again, it's almost like sometimes I don't want to put these words into the universe. I don't want to believe that we are limited to anything as a collective or as individuals, but have you seen a resistance to grief, or really just sort of looking at this climate um, scenario? Do you see that in your work? Do you touch on that in your work?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting talking point. I think we can very clearly see 2 substecks of that right now. And not to make it political on your show, and I hope that this is okay, but I do believe you've got one side of the political spectrum that's absolutely encased in that fear.
Mm,
And and where it is actually only me, 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 whereas the inner work that we were talking about, the blueprint work, like doing all of that, it's about us for collective versus the other side, which is about us for me, right? There's a pretty key difference there. And so usually the folks who are into me and the work that I'm doing can see how everything is related. Climate work. So we're actually talking about like climate change work, not just collective community climate, um, is a very privileged thing to focus on. Because if that's what you get to focus on, it means your life is not directly in danger, right? Um, but it's all interrelated. So when we're doing this internal self work, when we're growing ourselves and when we're growing our communities, then we are more conscious and we do care more about our consumption and we care more about our waste and we care more about what's happening with the environment. All of it is this huge domino effect and they work together. So every nonprofit that I've ever known, whether they're inner city schools or anything else, you know what else they do? They recycle. We care. Like, if you care about humanity, you care about all elements of it, and they are all interchangeable.
that's interesting because when I had my astrology read by Ravi Carr a couple years back, he told me that I had a specific placement that was essentially about the duration and longevity of humanity. That
Mm.
was like and you've in my human design, it says the same thing, that I'm part of my literal DNA is like to be driven to support the continuation of humanity. And so, being that that has been brought up in multiple different types of readings, that would infer to me that some people don't have that
Yeah,
drive.
I think that's probably true.
So,
Yeah.
having empathy for maybe that not existing as a way to create more self-focus, and especially if there is, I think for me, it's a combination of the idea of like we've lost touch with the ancient belief in about reincarnation
Mm.
and that we are eternal energy and everything is interconnected.
Energy never dies. We literally
Right.
know that.
But that combination of like losing track of that idea
Yeah.
over the last 200 or so years
Mhm.
and having people believe like, oh, I just have this linear experience of existence and I've made my money and like I've done my thing and I'm trying to empathize with people's beliefs that maybe it's about money or it's about hierarchy or some sort of this narrative, like, I've worked hard for what I have, so I'm not gonna share it with other people. Like, I don't know, but I think that I kind of have this seed that our inability to truly grieve and, like, feel these other rains of or avoidance of these other
Mhm.
emotions that are not
Yeah.
the ones we've been told are the ones that make us look good and are
Y
popular and are
yeah.
confident, you know?
I mean, we said that earlier, right? Like, that's why with EFT tapping, we release the negative first. Like, you can't pretend that there aren't awful things that or things that make you feel bad or thoughts in your mind that are negative. If you just sweep them under the rug, they don't go away. You have to release them. You have to speak them out and release them and then shift them. I think you're absolutely right about all of that, and collective grief is a real thing, and we are all experiencing it in a lot of ways. Still a lot of hangover, and I think for generations from COVID and
Yeah,
from the political damage that's happening and from all of this, um, and where I am sort of standing with all of that with community right now is yes, and to channel all of that theater talk, right?
yeah,
Improv talk is yes, and yes, all of those things are true, and we need to experience them, and we need to share collective space to release and to be honest and to talk to each other. And you can still be grateful right now, and you can still be joyful right now, and you can still find peace right now because lots of things can be true at once. And if we wanna heal grief, and we wanna heal the collective, and we wanna heal the environment, we have to stay joyful. We have to stay connected. We have to stay grateful because energetically and vibrationally, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a woo-woo freak show, I'm saying it because it's science, it creates more of it.
totally, and I believe to your point that when we avoid these hard things, it almost gives them more strength in our bodies, and that, I was on this, apprenticeship with sorrow lecture on Friday, and Weller, who is a psychologist, said that, you know, the mark of a mature human being, and he's done a lot of work around grief and sorrow, is that being able to hold sadness
Mm,
and gratitude in each hand, be
yes.
able to hold the
Yes.
tension of both. And
Mm,
that, I guess for me, I'm seeing and hearing of a lot of people, older generations, particularly fathers and dads, including my own dad had a recent health
mhm,
situation, but just this idea that Francis described around our avoidance, our hard avoidance of emotions for many years, creating this almost like sedimentary density around our heart. And heart failure is one of the leading causes of death. And, with my dad, particularly, he had recently experienced a really wild health scare where his heart was working at 10%. When they went in over and over and over, they didn't see a physical reason. There was no blockage, there was no altercation physically that was causing this. And
mhm.
I deeply believe it was associated with unfelt pain and grief that I do
Yeah.
think moved through his body. But, like, I wanna ask a question around when we have these challenging thoughts or say our subconscious beliefs, do we have to actually witness them? Do we have to know them? Or can we do things like tapping and other work that sort of circumvents the need to dive right in there and understand everything? Because clearly
Great
we can't.
question. Great question. You do not. There are some that you will tap into a specific memory, and those are very successful modalities. But a lot of people can't just can't. They can't recall, and B, it is too painful to recall. So there are a couple of different things. Certainly EFT tapping, we just talk about, what we know. We don't have to dig into the why that we know it. Hypnotherapy can do that also, but my favorite tool is called time techniques, and you can tap into your internal timeline to release things like fear, sadness, frustration, um, unworthiness, all the way back to childhood, past life past generations. So it's really tapping into your subconscious, and you don't have to immerse yourself in a specific memory to do it. It is literally the coolest thing ever. And if we have, and I, we don't have much time on it, but really quickly, I can help you elicit your timeline. You won't know what to do with it, but it's just to show people. Like, so if I have a feeling if I were to ask you um, to point to your future and to point to your past, you would point in a specific direction. So if I were to ask you, Marley, where's your future? What direction would you point?
To the right,
Okay. And where's your past?
to the left.
To the left. Okay. So you see that there is a line and it's in correlation with your body. It's different for everyone. Okay. So
Mhm.
then I would take you on a timeline journey. I would take you into the future. I would take you into the past, and you would experience your timeline from above, right?
Mm.
And then we start to connect in with your subconscious to release all sorts of emotions and feelings that don't serve you anymore. We can plant goals into your future timeline, and it's just really fucking cool.
Wow, that is amazing. And has it ever worked where you're going like year by year by year by year with someone from their current lifetime, or is that not as
No, we would say if it's current lifetime, usually it's 5 or younger.
Mhm.
So I would ask a question like, if you were to know, I know that you don't know, but if you were to know the first time you ever experienced sadness, was it before, during, or after your birth?
Mm.
And anytime there's a pause, then somebody's in their mind and they're not in their body. And I would say it's not your conscious answer. I want it's your subconscious. So your subconscious can be like, before birth, and you're like, "How do I don't know that." And then I'll say, "Was it in the womb or before that?" And you just give me whatever your subconscious answer is.
Yeah.
Is it past life or is it generational? How many past lives back? How many generations back? That kind of thing. And your subconscious just knows these answers, and you're like,
Yeah.
"I don't
Mine
know
was
why I
birth.
know
Mine
this."
was birth for
Like
sure.
during birth, like
Yeah, I
in
mean,
the
it might
womb?
have been before. I think it might have been before, but definitely during. I mean, and also I have a whole podcast that was about birth hypnosis versus past
Oh,
life hypnosis, and this
interesting.
woman in the 70s who did thousands of hypnotherapy sessions around the US. It's really fascinating, but basically the concept was that consciousness and souls had a much more traumatic time being birthed than they did passing back into
Yeah, it's
their
cool. Timeline work is cool because you don't have to associate to something specific, and it's very profound, and I love being a practitioner for it, and I love having someone do it with me. Um, and I can tell, like, we learn through the training, like, what we call physical acuity. I can tell when you've actually had a release because the glow on your skin changes,
Mm.
your eyes change, color of your cheeks change, like, we
Wow.
change. You can see a physical representation of a subconscious shift. It's very cool.
Absolutely, and it's so interesting to even look back at photos of myself during hard times of life where I definitely had some spiritual complications happening, but just
Yeah.
seeing, like, the differences in your physical essence based on your spiritual
Mhm.
um, I guess, inhabitants.
Yeah.
I love that so much. This is amazing conversation, and the timeline work sounds incredible. Every time I talk to you, and I just want to work with you with everything that you do. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. Okay, well, and I know you are seeing and doing and feeling so many things. I also want to acknowledge you are in your PhD in
Metaphysical science. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
sorry,
That's
metaphysical.
okay. There
I'm
is
gonna be
mysticism.
there.
Yeah.
But as far as, how we close out the blueprint often, and we could keep talking for hours, is just about what you see from your unique perspective for the highest possibilities and most optimal future for humanity.
Yeah, I think about it a lot, actually. I do believe it's a full consciousness raising. I
Mhm,
think it's a departure of the way we have monetized the world. I think that it's more in a collaborative, communicative environment, and a full shift away from patriarchal standards, because we know that I don't mean to say when women are in charge, but when we're leading with the feminine divine, that it is more about the collective. It is more about engagement. It is more about supporting one another. And I can feel the shift so deeply and I can see it.
Mhm.
It's almost as if I can see the consciousness rising. And I know right now it feels like the last dying gasp, and we're like we're being strangled by all of the negative and by all of the patriarchy and all of the masculine energy, but really, you guys, it's the end. Like, it's dying.
Yeah. It's so funny because everything you're saying, I see exactly the same, and I deeply, deeply agree with you. And that's where, I feel like part of my mission is trying to figure out how to how to how to figure it out. But I also think there's a possibility to just build something new, just that's not in any way tied to the old. Like, it's just like creating something new, more appealing than anything that exists now. And I feel so deeply that this old paradigm is already over and that we're just calibrating the birth of the new earth.
Yeah.
So thank you for that beautiful perspective. And
You're welcome.
I try to think about the leaders of today that we're dealing with, of like going back to their childhood and seeing the places in which, they were disconnected from love, and that they felt that they needed to control everything and everyone because they felt so little control within themselves. I mean, if we're going to be
Absolutely.
a little
I
empathetic.
agree. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Heather, how can people find you and work with you? And we'll obviously drop all your links in the show notes too.
Yeah, absolutely. My website is vickeryandco.com. So it's vickeryandco.com. I am on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I'm on I'm on Blue Sky and TikTok. I cut out Meta. It was better for my mental health. So, but I'm easy. Email me, heather@vickeryandco.com. Let's chat. Like I'm in, it's just me. I want to connect. I want to support. If you feel an alignment and you want to know more, let's talk.
Love that so much. And just want to give you one last opportunity to share anything else calling you.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing and for chatting with me about it because it's just all about collaboration. I just feel really, really called to us supporting each other and working together. And if anybody out there is looking to collaborate on something, we could do that too. But just really glad to, even though it's all a mess, to be in a time and space where people like us are doing this work and we are changing the world. And it feels really good.
I love that so much. Thank you so
You're
much for
so
joining us,
welcome.
Heather.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you soon.